Good day, YouTube. Today's topic I'm going to talk about. I will be approaching my 20 years in the Air Force in 2016. I enlisted in 1996, April, so I'm going to share the story with you 20 years in about 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to begin by saying that this shirt was given to me 20 years ago by a young woman who turned out to be my wife, Christmas 1995. And I knew I was leaving for the Air Force within 4 months of 96. So I didn't buy her a gift, and she still gives me a hard time about that. But I decided to share my life with her as we approach 20 years of marriage in March of 2016. So I joined the Air Force, basic training. I was 24 years old. And I asked myself, what did I get myself into? But I survived. I went to my tech school, Fire Academy, which was the job that I chose. I liked it. Went to my first base in Alabama. And I spent 4 years there in the fire department. I liked the fire department, but I knew it wasn't for me. And people knew that I wanted to get out and go back to Los Angeles. Then I realized that the Air Force was a great team with many opportunities. So I was able to cross-train into personnel. I chose personnel because I wanted to work Monday through Friday, traditional hours, and go to school at night, and that's what I did. So I retrained into personnel, and I worked in readiness. My job was to deploy people. I enjoyed it, and I went back to school. Had at that point 2 associate's degrees from the Community College of the Air Force, one in fire administration and one in fire science, one in personnel administration, 2 associate's degree. And then I went to Auburn University in Montgomery for a year, and then I wrapped up my last year of college at a Christian school, which was Faulkner University. And the reason I went there was because I wanted a human resources degree, and they had a great program. So I had 3 years of school, and they worked with me on my last one, and I got my bachelor's degree in human resource administration. So I applied for OTS. OTS is at Maxwell Air Force Base, but they didn't pick me up. I applied for ROTC, and I remember one day we had a flight chief who said, hey, let's have a call real quick. Everybody had to be there. The MPF, Military Personnel Flight at that time, commander. And she announced at that point that I had been accepted into ROTC, so I was surprised. I thought I would know before, but not in that way. And I was pleasantly surprised. So I had to leave active duty. I did 5 years, 10 months enlisted. I left active duty. By then I was already working on my master's degree. And ROTC had a program for 1 year. And I did 2 semesters plus 1 time at field training, which was at Lackland Air Force Base again. And then I commissioned. So we got our assignment to Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado, which is where I live now, and in personnel. That was my job as an officer. And then we spent here in Colorado about 3 years. Then we got an assignment to Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii, where we spent 10 years of time there because the Air Force had a reduction in force. And in Hawaii was when I started to work out for me as an individual, as opposed to because the Air Force requires it. And I would spend my own time at the gym, and I think that's a great thing. So once we left Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii in 2006, I got a job as an Air Force civilian, and that was a great job. And I was also a reservist for 2 years as an IMA, Individual Mobilized Augmentee. And after those 2 years, I wanted a permanent slot with promotion opportunities, so I applied for a traditional reservist where I taught PERSCO, Personnel Support for Contingency Operations. That's a personnel wartime function. I was very trained with that, so I did that. Completed my master's degree in 2003, which the Air Force paid for. So I was back at Peterson Air Force Base as a civilian and a reservist. I then worked 8.5 years as a civilian employee and 8.5 years as a reservist, traditional reservist at the 302nd Airlift Wing, Peterson Air Force Base. And I did personnel for a few years, and then I stepped out of my comfort zone, or my career field, not my comfort zone, but career field, and I did equal opportunity for 3 years. They trained me. I went to the tech school that was at Patrick Air Force Base. After 3 years, I knew I wanted to get back into my career field, but personnel had merged with services for the Force Support Squadron, and I got a job in the services career field, which I did that for a year and a half, and that was good. Then a friend of mine contacted me, and she said, hey, I gave your name to ARPC, which is Air Reserve Personnel Center at Buckley in Aurora, because they may be looking for someone with your skills. And they contacted me, but at that time it didn't work out, and I told them, I said, keep me in mind. And maybe 6 months later, they contacted me again for another opportunity where I worked at Buckley Air Force Base on orders. And that was a great experience. So I was active duty for about 6 months. This was last year in 2014. And they said, hey, would you be interested in maybe coming back as a civilian at Buckley Air Force Base in the future? And I said, you know what, I don't, because I want to stay in Colorado Springs, but I would consider an AGR tour. And next thing you know, I applied earlier this year in 2015, and that's where I am now, back on active duty for 3 years, AGR. I will hit 20 years right now in 2016, about August timeframe. But what does the future hold? And that's the thing. What do you want out of your Air Force career? Whether you serve 4 years, 10 years, or 20 plus, there's many opportunities, which you've heard me say before. Educational opportunities. I graduated from high school in 1990, so that's what, almost 26 years ago. I still have some t-shirts, and I posted those two baseball shirts that I have from 1989 and 1990 on my high school Facebook page, and somebody asked, do those still fit you? And the answer is yes. The reason I bring that up is because I work out and my weight doesn't fluctuate. Working out, yes, the military requires it and the Air Force as well, but I do it for myself at this point. Now, I'm 44 years old and my knees are hurting. So one of the things that you can do is, the medical benefits in the military are great in the Air Force. Make sure you document everything that happens to your body, because afterwards, maybe you can apply for a disability. 20 years has gone by. I was contacted by a former boss at ARPC, and he asked, do you want to teach or be a facilitator for resiliency training, for us taking care of ourselves and taking care of our wingmen? And I said, absolutely, that's what I used to do, because when I worked as a civilian for the Air Force, I worked at the Airmen and Family Readiness Center, formerly known as Family Support Center. And my first year working as a civilian, it was tough because I was in civilian clothing and the person across my desk was in a military uniform. And I kept on thinking, for 1 full year, that was taken away from me. But I'm an optimist. I make the most out of my situation in life. I don't always get what I want. So going back to this resiliency training, I'm going to get trained right now in 2016 so I can facilitate and teach classes just like I used to in my past and help others. I'd really love to deal with people, which is why I made this channel 2 years ago. And it's starting to grow, and I'm very fortunate, and I thank you for watching any of the videos. I hope it helps, and I take advantage of opportunity. Any opportunity out there. I like to learn new things. I like to step out of my comfort zone. I'm here at a museum. They're closed today, but I'll be back. And that's well, my goal is to make it to the top of this building. I don't know what year it is. I'll find out. That tower, and maybe film that. And I'll leave you with this. Whether you serve 4 years or 20 plus, make the most of it. I've said that over and over my channel. And you're going to meet some great people in the Air Force, in the military, other branches as well, because I've dealt with other branches. So it goes by quick. Make the most of your time. The military is going to use you. Make sure you take advantage of it. I'll leave you with this, a view of beautiful but cold Pikes Peak.